to my channel. If you're new here, welcome, and if you've been here, well, here's another video for you guys. So today's video is going to be about the time that birth control ruined my relationship with my boyfriend about a year ago, I would say. So yeah. So let's flash back to the beginning. I met my boyfriend in January of 2015. So that was a year after, well, half a year after I'd graduated high school, and I had never taken birth control before. It was always something that I wanted to look into, but I never had a reason to take it, if you know what I mean. I didn't have acne. So once I got a boyfriend, I started taking birth control in March. So we had been dating for, we started dating around the middle of February. So we've been dating for about a month. So I decided, like, it's time to get some birth control. So I went to Planned Parenthood because I didn't want to tell my parents about needing birth control. So I don't even think they knew that I was dating him at the time. I don't think they found out till about 3 months after I was dating him that I was dating him. Anyway, so I went to Planned Parenthood and I got some birth control. Now what they gave me was microgestin, like F-20, F/20. I don't know what that means, but that's what I had. So it was, once a day, every month. So at first it was cool, like it was okay. And then I started to gain weight and I started having behavioral problems, like issues. And if you don't know me, which most of you don't, I am not the type of person to get upset easily. It takes a lot to get me upset. I don't just like cry over nothing. Even when it's my time of the month, I'm starting to get bitchy around that time. Things start to annoy me. But around this time, everything annoyed me. Like literally, if my boyfriend would talk about something, it would annoy the crap out of me, and it took everything I had not to just yell at him about it. Or if he was upset with me about anything, no matter what it was, I would cry about it all the time. I was crying about everything. He would ask me, like, what's wrong? Like, what did I do? Like, what's wrong? Why are you crying? And I couldn't stop crying. Like, I couldn't tell him why I was crying because I didn't know. Like, I had no idea why I was crying. I was crying because I was sad for no reason. And that would frustrate him, and him being frustrated would make me sad because I knew that I was the reason why he was frustrated. So I would be even more depressed and cry even more. And it was just absolutely terrible. We didn't necessarily fight all the time, but the fact that he could never figure out why I was crying really irritated him and pissed him off, which in turn made me cry even more. Yeah, so it was just a mess. It was a terrible mess, and just constantly always crying about nothing, and it really stressed him out. It stressed me out. He'd be at work, and then he'd come home, and I'd come over and I'd just be upset, and it would upset him after a long day at work and everything, and it's just upsetting each other 24/7 for no reason, like literally no reason. So in addition to having really bad emotional issues, which had never existed before in my life, I also did not have a sex drive. So there went the whole purpose for having birth control. I never wanted to be intimate with him because I just didn't feel like I wanted to, just ever. It was gone. Like, my sex drive was completely disappeared. I just didn't want to do it. So the birth control was really birth control because it was making my boyfriend really dislike me because I was upset about everything all the time. And then there was this one day we went through this from March all the way to like November, and there was this one night when I volunteered to work on a Saturday, which I never did. I was actually training to change positions at my job, but it wasn't like a mandatory training. It was like, if you want to show up early this day, I'll show you how to do this. And I was like, okay, cool, yeah, I'll do that. That was gonna be on a Saturday. Well, the night before, my boyfriend's truck broke down, so we had to take it to the shop. So he had asked me that night if I would take him to his work in the morning at like 5:30 in the morning. He had to work on a Saturday, which he never had to do, but this just happened to be this day that I had to work really, really early in the morning. So I was upset about it. And if it happened today, because I'm not on birth control anymore, I would have totally done it. I would have been like, yeah, sure, like I'll take you early in the morning, whatever, like it's not a big deal. But then I was just pissed off. I was so mad that I had to take him to his job at 5:30 in the morning, and I was really upset about it. So we woke up and I was just in a pissed off mood, sitting shotgun while he was driving my truck to his job. When he got out, I just ignored him. I didn't say goodbye, I didn't kiss him, I didn't say I love you. I just scooted over and just drove off. I was so mad. I was mainly mad because I wouldn't get to sleep in. I had to go to my work at 11 o'clock in the morning, which wasn't even that early, so I did get to go back to sleep. So I went back to sleep and I get woken up because he got home. Like, he made it home before I even left to go to work. So I was like, what are you doing home already? Like, I was mad. I was like, why are you already home? Like, what the heck? And he's like, oh, we're done now. Like, we did our stuff, we're done. And I was like, if you knew you were going to be done, why didn't you just take my truck to work and and I could have, you know, not had to take you to work. You could have just taken my truck if you were gonna be home this early. And little did he know I actually woke up an hour late. So technically I would have left before he got home, but like I said, it wasn't mandatory. So he could have just taken my truck and been home before I left, and I could have just been a little bit late to work. It would have been absolutely no big deal. So I was really mad because I was like, wow, I got up at 5:30 and I took you to work for no freaking reason because you got home before I left. Well, I was mad, so I left like really mad because I normally I wouldn't be mad at all. I would have been like, oh yeah, that sucks. Oh well, you know, brush it off, whatever. But no, I was mad. So I get to work and it's a beautiful day out, and I'm just like, you know what? Like, I'm not mad about it. Like, I'm not mad about it. So I texted him. I was like, hey, this was around like 6 o'clock in the afternoon. I was like, hey babe, like I'm gonna go home and, you know, I'm sorry, you know, I love you, whatever, like I'm sorry I got mad. So he didn't text me back. So I was thinking, and this was the first time that I texted him because I was busy all day. So I was at home, I lived with my parents at the time, and I just kept texting him like, hey, I'm sorry, like I hope you're not mad at me, like I'm really sorry. And he just didn't text me back. So at the time I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna do what, you know, I would want him to do, and I'm just gonna go over there to his house. So I made up an excuse. I was like, hey, I left my flat iron at your house, I'm going to come get it. So I go to his house and I knock on the door, and he hasn't texted me back like since 6 o'clock. This was probably like 7:30 or so. I told my dad when I was at home, I was like, hey, I'm gonna go over to my boyfriend's house. So I was over there and he didn't answer, but I heard his dog bark, and his dog is never outside of her kennel unless somebody's home. So I knew he was home, and I was like, are you seriously? Like I texted him, I was like, are you really not gonna answer the door? Like, are you kidding me right now? Like, this is so childish. So I went out to my truck and I was like, well, I can't go home because I just told my dad that I was going to his house, and I'm an overthinker. So I was like, if I go home now, my dad's gonna be like, why didn't he let you in his house? And he's gonna hate my boyfriend. I didn't want that to happen. So I'm sitting there, I'm just like, what the heck? Like, so I kept calling him, texting him, like, why aren't you coming outside? Like, why aren't you answering the door? Like, what the fuck is going on? So I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna sit here. I'm just gonna sit in my truck. I'm just gonna sleep here all night. Like, I was just spitting stuff out at this point, like just trying to get him to come open the door. So I drove back to my neighborhood because I knew that I was like, whatever, like I'm not gonna sit here. It had been like 30 minutes. I was literally sitting outside my truck in front of his house for 30 minutes. I'm just like, you know what? I'm not gonna do this. I'm just gonna go hang out. I'm gonna go hang out in my neighborhood until it's been long enough that I can go home and it'll seem like I've been at his house for a while. I go to my neighborhood and I'm sitting there and I start thinking like, oh my gosh, like it was a certain day that he was going to go visit one of his friends. And so I was like, what if he went to visit one of his friends, and what if something bad happened to him? Like, what if he died, or like what if he got killed or something? So I started freaking out, like, oh my god, like what happened? Because he usually always went to bed around like 9 o'clock, and this was like earlier than that still. And so I was freaking out. I was like, what if he died? Like, what if something happened to him and he's not answering his phone? So I find his dad on Facebook, and I didn't really know his dad very well at the time, but he lived with his dad, so I mean every time I went to his house I'd seen him, but I wasn't friends with him on Facebook or anything. So I found his dad on Facebook and I messaged him. I was like, hey, have you seen Harley lately? Like, I can't get a hold of him. And his dad was like, no, I haven't really talked to him since we traded vehicles earlier today. And I was like, well, I can't get a hold of him, like I don't know what's going on. And he's like, it's okay, like I'm about to be home soon and I'll see like what he's doing. I was like, okay, cool. So he gets home, so he goes home and he messages me back and he's like, oh, he just passed out, he's sleeping. And I was like, oh, okay, so he's sleeping, okay. So I was like, oh, okay, thank you for letting me know. He's just sleeping, it's not a big deal. So then I text my boyfriend and I was like, hey, like I'm so sorry I blew your phone up, like, you know, have a good day, like I'm sorry, you were probably really tired, you know, this and that. And this is like probably the 13th time I've contacted him since 6 o'clock, and it was now probably around 9 or so. So yeah, I texted him that and I was like, okay, cool, so he's just sleeping. I'll see him in the morning, it's not a big deal. The next day was going to be a Sunday. So the next day I wake up and it's around 10 o'clock in the morning and I'm sitting there playing Fallout, you know, and I get a text from my boyfriend and it was like a 3-page long text, and he blew up on me. Like, he was like, what the fuck? He's like, all I did was go to sleep. He's like, I was up all morning, super early in the morning. I went to sleep at 6 o'clock. Like, what the hell is wrong with you? Like, you are crazy. Well, he didn't call me crazy, but he was like, this is seriously the icing on the cake. He's like, lately it's been, you know, like a chore coming home to you because you're upset all the time, and this is seriously icing on the cake. He's like, I'm sorry, but I can't do this anymore. You can come get your stuff whenever you want. And I'm just like, whoa, like what the heck? Like, what? So I was super upset, and honestly, like, the only way to explain it is that this breakup was the worst breakup I've ever experienced in my life. life, and I didn't know it until we broke up. And I mean, I'm sure it didn't help that I was super emotional because of all the hormones and everything in my birth control, but I was devastated. Like it was like somebody close to me had died. It's like instead of he broke up, he died or something. Like that's how terrible it was. So that day I went and I picked up my stuff from his house, and I was super upset. I was crying. I was just like, I felt terrible. And so for the next few weeks I had been researching birth control and side effects it can have, and I found out that the hormonal side effects can definitely cause you to freaking lose your mind and just go like crazy, just crying about everything. I posted a status on Facebook to try to show him like, hey, it was my birth control, like that's not me, that's not who I am, and he just wasn't wanting to go back into it so soon. So the reason why I know that I had stronger feelings for him than anybody else that I had ever dated was because I never got over it. Like I never did. That person who I was on birth control was not who I really was, and I tried so hard to make him understand that, and he just kind of refused to. I mean, I don't know that he refused to listen, and maybe he did listen, but he just didn't want to get back together at that time. So yeah, that was the worst, absolutely the worst breakup I've ever experienced, because it wasn't right, like in a way, like it didn't make any sense, and all I could have done was just stop taking the birth control, and then instead of celebrating 1 year in July, we would be celebrating like 2 years and a half, because we would have been together for that whole time and not had to have started over when he finally decided he wanted to get back together. So yeah, that's how birth control ruined my relationship. Since then, I have not pursued birth control because it's just like, I don't want kids, but at the same time, it's not, the stress and everything is just not worth it. So if you have recently started birth control and you're experiencing some really weird things with your attitude and your behavior and your feelings, and you're wondering if it's birth control, it probably is the birth control. Personally, I think that it affected me so badly because Planned Parenthood just gave out this birth control to anybody who needed it. So it needed to be strong in order to like umbrella all of the types of people. So it was just probably way too strong for me, and it ruined birth control for me. It was the first time I've ever had it, and I can't go back to it because I'm afraid of what it'll do to our relationship. And now we both know that that's what it was, because here I am, a normal human being. I don't cry over everything. I'm not upset about really anything. Yeah, it just really ruined that for me. So that is the story about how birth control ruined my relationship and turned me into a crazy bitch. So yeah, if you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments below, and I will reply to those because I feel very strongly about this subject. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys in my next video. Don't forget to subscribe. If you like this video, give me a thumbs up. If you didn't like it, give me a thumbs down, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.